Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Happy Halloween, and welcome back to Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the best of the mid-20th century and how to add vintage vibes to your modern life. We're your hosts, Jackie.
And Gonzalo. Thanks for joining us today. So, for our special Halloween episode, which, again, like Jackie said, Happy Halloween, we are doing something a little different, and we'll be reading a scary story from the mid-century to get you guys in the mood for this great holiday. If you'd like to skip ahead to the topic we're covering today, aka the story, we have a timestamp in our notes, and check out our new chapter links on our episode. But first, Jackie, since today is Halloween, what are you doing tonight?
So, our Halloween tradition is always to watch some horror movie, and I'm gonna make spooky snacks. I like to do something snacky for Halloween because you have to get up and hand out candy a lot. So you don't want to do a big full dinner. Last year I did an entirely spider themed spread. I spent not hours, but minutes of time cutting out little spider olives and made little canapes with them. And I made little spider hot dog wrapped in stuff. This year, because we're recording way in advance, I do not have a theme picked out yet, but we're definitely going to watch a horror movie and we're definitely going to eat something snacky. And then also at work, we are doing a big Halloween potluck, and I'm going to go over the top and decorate the table and everything like I do next year. I'm the spirit of Halloween at the office. I actually already decorated the break room.
We don't decorate at work.
They wouldn't if I wasn't there. But I decorate at work, and everyone lets me do it, which is nice. Anyway, what are you doing for Halloween?
So, it's funny because I'm usually... What's the Scrooge version of Halloween?
Probably still Scrooge.
Okay, well, I'm the Scrooge of Halloween. Usually gonna turn my lights off so that no one bugs me. But this year, I think we're going to leave the lights on and get them candy and pass it out to trick-or-treaters if they come. There's usually not that many kids in our street. But we'll see. And there will probably be some libations for us, not for the kids.
Right. But anyway, let's get on to the show. So we chose a scary story today that was first published in the magazine Weird Tales, Volume 36, Issue 1, which was published on September 1941. It is titled The Man Who Lived and was written by Raymond F. O'Keefe. We couldn't find much about Raymond online. He seems to be another author of the mid-century who wrote mainly about sci-fi or scary fiction. Apart from the published source we used for the story, Raymond was also included in the book 99 Classic Science Fiction Stories, alongside Ray Cummings, Philip K. Dick, and H.G. Wells. Weird Tales is an American fantasy and horror pulp fiction magazine founded by J.C. Henenberger and J.M. Lansinger in late 1922. The first issue, dated March 1923, appeared on newsstands February 18th. The newspaper went through several owners and editors, but by the mid-1940s had declined in popularity. By 1954, it had ceased production. Starting in 1973, several attempts were made at resurrecting the magazine. The most successful return started in 1988 and continued, with some breaks, for 20 years under numerous publishers. In the mid-1990s, the title was changed to Worlds of Fantasy and Horror because of licensing issues, but the original title returned by 1998. The magazine is regarded by historians of fantasy and science fiction as a legend in the field. Other notables in the magazine are Robert E. Howard, who was a regular contributor and published several of his Conan the Barbarian stories in the magazine. Edmund Hamilton wrote a good deal of science fiction for Weird Tales, although eventually he kept his space operas for publication elsewhere, and Ray Bradbury.
But the magazine did not die out with the end of the mid-century. In April 1995, HBO announced that they had plans to turn Weird Tales into a 3-episode anthology show similar to their Tales from the Crypt series. Screenwriters Mark Patrick Carducci and Peter Atkins were brought in to help with the deal negotiations, and directors Tim Burton, Francis Ford Coppola, and Oliver Stone were executive producers, and each was expected to direct an episode, which would have been amazing. However, the series never came to fruition. In the new century, the magazine saw several breaks in several publications. On August 14th, 2019, the official Weird Tales Facebook magazine announced the return of Weird Tales, and soon after, issue 363-367, which came out 2019 through 2023, became available to purchase at the Weird Tales website. The cover art for the magazines was also something beautiful to look at. often featuring illustrations of the stories within, always with a scary, macabre feel to them. So, just quick, this work we actually got, it's in the public domain in the US because it was published before 1964 and the copyright was not renewed. So, quick thank you to Wikisource for providing the text for this story. So, this is The Man Who Lived. Hunger and the sight of plenty drove Edward Penderby from the streets at 9 o'clock the night of that September 10th. London's heat, pulsing at wall and roof all afternoon and all evening, had made the Lopez Street attic even hot. He opened the window, and then the effort left him panting. Penderby was tired in body and mind, tired as only the workless on the futile quest can be. His underwear clung, the soles of his feet seared burning. The hunger pain had given way to an ache that throbbed between his eyes and the top of his head. Picture this Penderby. Picture him as he lay, while the room darkened, on the soiled coverlet of the truckle bed. Lanky, ill-shaven, black hair in need of cutting, eyes quick even in feet. Suit now so ragged that any employer would have been repelled, and in dubious control a clever, savage brain scheming, ever to no purpose. And ask why he was chosen. Whatever the quality of Penderby's faculties, worry and fatigue had numbed his mind beyond the power of directed thought that night, and he stared as unthinkingly as a human being can at the lamp-thrown window pattern taking shape on the slanted ceiling. When that pattern was sharpest, he had fallen asleep, one leg still hanging over the side of the bed, and it was 3 hours after the automatic extinguishing of the streetlights wiped the design away that he awoke.
If it weren't so infernally hot,
He said.
I'd stay in bed.
Then he saw that he had slept in his clothes and cursed. They would stick to his sweating skin more than ever. As he swung onto the edge of the bed, he felt the clamminess of them already. But he washed, tiptoed through the fetid lodging-house air, and stepped onto the freshness of the street. He turned towards London's heart and walked slowly. What impelled him, what had caused him to leave his room so early and make a miserable day longer than it normally would have been, he did not know. The first body was outside a store at the corner. It was an old newspaper seller's, in a greasy blue suit that shone. Copies of the Evening Standard and the Star had fallen from his arms to the sidewalk. Penderby, determined not to be an inquest witness, hurried past. But beyond the corner was another body, a girl who had been standing in a doorway. Her body had folded into the attitude of a sleeper on the step, and her cigarette had burned away in the palm of one hand. There was no blood, so far as Penderby could see. But she might have been murdered, so might the old man, only a few feet away, and Penderby turned and ran. He stopped short to avoid a bundle of rags and what had been a slum harridan. He was frightened now. He retreated to the middle of the street and looked swiftly up and down. 2 more bodies were about 50 yards away, and one was that of a policeman.
What in thunder is this?
Penderby asked aloud.
Am I awake anyway?
He undeniably was, and the body's still there.
They can't be asleep altogether.
He said.
Nor drunk. Look at that cop.
But he went back to the sidewalk and touched the 2 bodies on gingerly. He said,
Hey, wake up.
And felt a little sacrilegious as he tried to shake what had been the girl. They were corpses, without a doubt. So he found were the bodies of the policeman and the well-dressed youth nearby. 5 bodies, and not noticed, apparently, till now.
I don't give a damn.
Penderby muttered.
Let someone else be a witness. I'd get no thanks for it, I'll bet.
On he went. A pair of cats had died on the steps of a house. What he assumed to be the body of a man lay on the other side of the street.
Let him lie there. What a jerk.
I know, right? But then also I keep thinking, like, if I stumbled upon dead bodies on the street, I don't know what I would do. Like, I also wouldn't...
I guess keep walking is the answer, but I just don't think I'd be this... I think I would be running and trying to find someone else.
True, I would try to find someone, but then also be like, what if they think that I killed him?
Yeah, I get that, too.
But also, if I ran away, I'd be like, they're going to know, they're going to think that I'm guilty because I ran away.
Right, yeah.
My brain would go like 10 an hour. 10 miles, not 10 miles, that sounds slow. 100 miles an hour. He found himself counting the dead on Warwick Way. They seemed natural after a time. Most, at a distance, were dark bundles that matched the drab street. His astonishment gradually receded. It did not grow. It became a curtain in his awareness. New background that gave him new proportion. But he stopped now and then to ponder the astounding fact once more, and his thinking did not lessen the fact that these streets in the center of London were filled with the dead. To one he did give heed. A girl, 17 or 18, had been leaning out of a first-story window, face cupped in hand. Her elbows had spread on the sill and her fingers had slid into the yellow hair. Chin and a part of one cheek rested on the stone slab. He ran to the door of the house. He pressed the bell, wielded the knocker till the street echoed. No one was aroused.
"It's a plague,"
Penderby shouted. His voice was shrill. A sickly, light sweat stood on his forehead.
"It's a plague. It's got the whole town, and it'll get me."
But he began to reason, with surprising coolness that marked most of what he did that day. He walked from one to another of 6 or 7 bodies on the street. The expressions on the faces were those of persons who had tried to prevent themselves from slipping, from tipping, from being struck. There was no sign of panic, and there was no sign that anyone had run to aid anyone else.
"No.
He concluded.
If it was a plague, it killed everyone at once. But a plague couldn't do that. And anyway, how comes it that I'm here, after sleeping beside an open window all night?"
Then
"But am I awake?"
he pinched the soft skin on the back of his hands, in turn several times, stamped, shook himself as if to fling the burden away. He was awake. Those others had died. Edward Penderby was alive. He went on, his bearing less hesitant than before.
I still can't figure out, if he's reacting normally, but I suppose it does drive the plot forward this way.
I love how the narrator goes he's concluded coolly, like all of a sudden he's like panic, and then all of a sudden you know what, this is the new normal.
Yep, this is fine. This is just life now. I'm the only one in London. But let's find out what you would do if you thought you were the only person in London. 16 or 17 buses, passengers in all of them, drivers and conductors in a few, stood in the Victoria Railroad depot yard. Penderby did not enter any of them. He noted a blue uniformed group in a corner and remembered that drivers, conductors, and inspectors had gathered at the spot. There was no sound of trains. One, bearing travelers from the continent who had landed the evening before, had drawn in. Some doors were open, but the cars were still full. Outside were taximen dead, newsboys dead, policemen dead. 2 bodies in German-cut clothes had fallen into a gutter. They were those of refugees, probably. Horror and alarm gained brief mastery, and Penderby fled the place. As he fled, Big Ben and cathedral bells began to peal the useless hour and made a clangor in his ears. He stopped only when his lungs seemed about to burst and his aching legs could not carry him further. An automobile stood 6 feet from him. It was the first he had noticed. He stepped onto the running board, but he had to respect property, and he paused.
"Is there anyone alive here?"
he shouted. Then he bawled the question. There was no reply, and he slipped in, but the ignition had been locked and the key removed. He cursed in impatience already different from the vexations of his months of struggle, and jumped out. A bigger automobile was ahead, and the driver had slumped onto the wheel. He opened the nearest door, turned the body off balance, and guided it to the ground, seated himself at the wheel and started the engine. The key had been lying on the floor.
I love how the first car, he's like, "Oh, I can't touch this. It's someone else's car." And then the second car, he's like, "Move out of the way."
Bicycles, cars, and bodies blocked the way every few yards, so Penderby travelled slowly. He passed the Houses of Parliament and government buildings in Whitehall. Trafalgar Square contained more dead than even the space outside the depot. He spared them only a glance. The air was chill, and the hunger that sleep had held off had returned. He drove to a big restaurant 300 yards away and, somewhat timidly, despite all he had seen, walked in. The restaurant had been full. He halted at a table at which a middle-aged man had sat. On it were beef, ham, cakes, bread and butter, and a pot of tea. Standing, he snatched food in both hands, and as he ate wolfishly from one, the other was stretched for still more. But he could not eat as much as he had expected. His stomach had been used to little. He was thirsty. The long cold tea cut the saliva from his tongue. Still, it was bitter, and he set the pot from which he had gulped back with a crash. He remembered that he was in the less expensive section, and he returned to the entrance hall, stepped over the bodies of waiters and others, and went up the broad stairs. Now we're talking.
Yep. I would have gone straight to this part.
Bottles and glasses stood on a table near the cashier's desk in the second dining room. He poured a glass of wine. He swallowed it in a second, poured and drank another, and, a little less quickly, another. His body began to tingle. He lost awareness of blistered feet and sticky clothes.
"This is something like it,"
said Penderby. Bottle and glass on knees, he sat on a chair he had drawn a little apart and mused in a mingling of contentment and glee. His mind suddenly seized on the fact that the dead he faced had been more than well-to-do. He leaped onto the chair, waved bottle and glass aloft, and cried.
Silence!
His voice mounted to a sing-song screech.
Ladies and gentlemen, you simply cannot know the pleasure it gives me to be with you this morning. There's a slight difference, to be sure, between your standing and mine just now, but you're big enough to overlook it, aren't you? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the upper crust, I give you...
There, Penderby paused.
What do I give you?
He rubbed his forehead with the wet bottle spout.
I've got it. I give you discontent, disappointment, starvation, clothes the dog bark at, and a happy death.
He drank the toast, sent bottle and glass sliding and spinning along the waxed floor, and ran down the stairs. He was exhilarated as never before. He was triumphant.
Also running down the stairs after drinking all that?
3 glasses of wine at dawn.
I would be asleep.
Nick, you're the last person alive.
Yeah.
Might as well start the party early.
I know, right? The Strand, London's most famous thoroughfare, which leads from Trafalgar Square to the Fleet Street, was strewn with dead. They had fallen at bus stops, in late shutting stores. Lights in some of these burned still. On pedestrian crossings, in buses and automobiles that had crashed against one another and in places formed a barrier from wall to wall. Here and there, wheels had squeezed blood into oozy patches. A bus had shattered a cafe window and spilled cakes and pastries onto the sidewalk. Another had snapped an electric post, and wires lay in curls and tangles for 60 yards. One wing of a Rolls Royce, a white-haired woman in the back, had littered a section of pavement with plate glass of a clothing store. Penderby climbed in, and in 10 minutes was wearing a tweed jacket, flannel trousers, a gray shirt, light underwear, clean socks, and a yellow belt. He took a pair of brown shoes from a store nearly opposite, then sought the effect in the mirror of the dim rear.
I don't look too bad,
he commented.
Considering everything.
He went back to the street.
And now to see what's become of the rest of the 8 million.
Penderby had begun to utter his thoughts, but it was not in fear, so far as he knew, at least, nor was he lonely after this inexplicable departure of his fellow creatures. He picked his way among the dead for about half a mile. The number decreased as he neared Fleet Street, and he took a bicycle from the doorway of a store and rode, with little difficulty, into London's newspaper row. The stare of what had been a policeman at a lamppost near the court buildings brought him up with a jerk that nearly threw him off the machine. For a moment, he thought that another had been spared, but the eyes did not move. Only for a waste paper bin, shoulder high, on the pole, and his straddling legs, the policeman would have fallen as he died. Penderby was slightly hungry when he came to a corner lunch counter, so he climbed over the bar, mixed a milkshake as he had seen attendants do, and drank between bites of stale ham sandwich. He rode on and dismounted at a newspaper office. He walked in. The front office contained 12 or 14 bodies, 3 or 4 of those clerks. He climbed the marble and concrete stairs 2 at a time. He had searched 2 corridors when he opened the door marked Newsroom. There were bodies at nearly half the desks, and one had fallen beside the half-opened door of a telephone booth, in which the instrument hung full length of the cord. A head pressed the keys of a typewriter on a desk near, and some of the type bars were still in midair. Penderby pulled a sheet of paper from the machine. The word Churchill and the number 3 were in the top left corner. He read, Mr. Churchill declared that he did not favor any attitude, policy, or frame of mind that could be construed as containing even the gem of what had been called encirclement, but that he would oppose any No more.
Good God,
murmured Penderby. He moved to the desk alongside. A young man had begun a story about loan failure. He had typed the line hyphens through said and substituted asserted. Penderby went to all the other desks occupied. No one had been writing of death.
How could they have known after all?
He reasoned.
It probably got everyone at the same time. It must have.
He wandered through the composing room and down a spiral metal staircase to the pillared press room. The remote bulbs still glared. In the light diluted by mud-spattered, wire-netted windows, they did little but bring glints to the shiny parts of the machines. One press had run off an early edition. It had continued to run, it seemed, long after those who had tended it died. a hill of papers hid the little gate out of which they had come. A man in dungarees had been leaning against a steel pillar of another machine. A face-high metal button shone on the pillar. It had been handled often. Penderby pressed it and the machine began to roll. He retreated to the door as a rush of paper merged with a thunderous hammering, then returned and lifted one of the papers already carried out. The main story was about Russia and Germany.
If they could have waited,
He said.
They'd have had a bigger story than that, but I suppose they couldn't. They had to go with the rest.
The press still ran, and the concrete floor vibrated. The sight and the sound of it, with the recollection of what he had seen in the newsroom, stirred something akin to pity in the man. Brains, hands, metal, here had been working when death had come, and if ever the product of journalism had been a feeling of value, it was now. Penderby did not know how to stop the press, and the noise irritated him after a while. He found the rear exit, a grimy, steel-grilled door that opened onto a lane. He turned right, the direction in which a number of tracks had been turned, and found himself on Fleet Street again. His throat was parched, and he decided to look for more drink. Beer would be best, for the forenoon was hot. He filled 2 big glasses in a saloon, brought them out, placed them on the curb, and sat beside them in the sunlight. This time he drank slowly. He had slipped a newspaper into a jacket pocket, and he idly read and drank for half an hour. The day was serene and had brought an air purer than London had breathed in a century. I love the idea of the world dying around you. He said, yeah, just sit here on the newspaper and a beer.
Honestly, this is from... It's giving that one episode of The Twilight Zone where Time Enough at Last, where the guy is spared in an apocalypse because he happens to be in a bank vault, and then he's just wandering around an empty town, and all he does is collect a pile of library books he's excited to read. This is a lot more relatable, because probably what you would be doing is a lot of exploring and a lot of stealing and drinking.
Yeah.
This is, yeah.
I would be trying to find a way to be safe at night. My first thought would be okay, where's base? Where's home base? What am I barricading? I can explore tomorrow. The man to whom all London, if not all Britain, had passed dropped the paper, for he had noted the purity of the air. He wondered how long it would last. The street contained enough corpses to start a plague after another day or so. He could not bury them, not to mention the rest of the 8 million in Greater London.
I suppose,
Penderby decided.
I'll have to leave. Well, it wouldn't take long to get out by car.
But whither? The countryside, in all likelihood, would be as perilous as the city. No district in Britain was thinly populated.
Oh, to hell with it,
was his conclusion. Having dismissed the problem for the moment, he went into the saloon for more beer. Of course. He was tired, and it was nearly noon when he stretched himself and decided to explore further. Only a little further, for the heat was intense. He cycled across Ludgate Circus at the end of Fleet Street and up Ludgate Hill. Dead, as he had expected, everywhere. Silence complete, save for the faint noise of the bicycle. He was in the financial center. This region of swarming clerks and dull buildings had interested him little at any other time, and only the coolness of narrow streets between high, grey walls induced him to go in now. The bodies he saw were few. Life normally had left the district with closing of offices at 5 p.m. Ahead was a bank. He dismounted at the curb in front of it. A gate stood between sidewalk and door. The windows were high, deep, and barred.
If I weren't so tired,
Penderby reflected,
I'd go in, even if it took a month.
The place could tell him nothing, he saw. As he rode back to the Strand, he pondered the fact, the most illuminating so far for his new life was concerned, that the district of money was the least useful in all London.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably do the same thing, oh, I could get all this money now, and then but then do what with it? Because the world is ended. What are you going to do with money?
I would have to get a lot of bills and throw them up in the air, like in the movies, just to say that I did it.
Yeah. Anyway, getting serious again. Well, all right. So we also, before we start this next paragraph, we should do a little drink check. So it's 3 glasses of wine and 4 glasses of beer?
At least 3, because he had 2 and then he went back for another.
So that explains this next line, which is, Penderby was sleepy now. Anyway, so I'll take over narrating. Penderby was sleepy now, though it was still the early afternoon. The stimulus of wine and beer had worn off, and the alcohol made him drowsy. He cycled as far as a luxury hotel before which taxis and limousines had been busy the night before, left the machine tilted against one of the glass doors, and walked in. Some of the well-dressed guests had died in armchairs, others on divans. More, standing, had fallen in groups that even now, somehow, told of their easy, unvexed lives of conversation and travel. Penderby, glancing around, was glad that the bitterness in him had not died. The first door he opened after he went upstairs moved only a few inches. Something had fallen against it. On the floor of the next room was the body of a man. A woman and a little girl had died in another. The fourth was empty. A door in it led to a bathroom. He turned the hot water on. It was still at boiling point, and as he waited till it had cooled, he shaved with a good sharp razor someone had left on the dressing table. Penderby, despite the luxury of steam and soap and water to his chin, did not linger in the bath. He had begun to hurry. For what? He did not know. But the cool sheets soothed him. The comfort of the bed was so exquisite that, to sense it as long as possible, he tried to stay awake. The sleep into which he soon fell was dreamless, and lasted till 7 p.m. He made tea in the big kitchen below street level, and brought butter and cold roast chicken from a refrigerator and fine bread from a chrome and white cupboard. When he left the hotel, he was munching a sandwich made from remnants of the meal. The Strand was gray and, in corners and gaping storefronts, here and there, black. Rain had made scattered pools that gave the street a shabby, defeated look. The only light they reflected was the little in the sky. All the street lamps had failed now, and the store lights that had outlived the day were few and ineffectual. It was as Penderby looked round Trafalgar Square, somber and a little frightening, that he felt his first bewilderment, apart from the shocks of surprise of the day. He sat on a balustrade outside South Africa House, and tried to plan the suddenly monstrous-appearing future. He could not stay in the vast charnel house London had become. A day or two more, as he already had warned himself, and a plague would ride every breath of air. But his food was in London. He could not turn farmer at short notice, and the supplies in stores and hotels wouldn't last very long. The continent? But he hardly could manage a boat even the short Dover-Calais voyage, could he? Then he had not heard or seen aircraft since the afternoon before. If airliners had come from France and other countries and landed at a dead airdrome, the pilots, undoubtedly, would have flown from Croydon to London. Had everyone in France, Germany, Spain, Italy died? Was he the only one spared? Were there French, German, Spanish, Italian Edward Penderbys? The square was cold, lonesome. He left his perch stiffly and turned into the Strand once more. He tumbled over a body now and then. Clouds that had scuttled from the west broke in a short, heavy shower, and it brought a damp smell from the heaps of wet clothes on every side. The hotel was in darkness, and he leaned against a bronze-encased pillar outside and began to smoke a cigar he had found in the bedroom. The dead he did not fear, but he was uneasy in the midst of so vast a number of them. Besides, the excitement of the day had left him a little nervous, and hours of wakefulness would be the price of his evening's sleep.
That's what you get for napping for so long. Penderby began to wonder about the Thames. What had happened to the ships on the river, the men who had lived in them? A street nearby led to the water, and in 5 minutes he was leaning over the wall and trying to count the vessels in the dark. 2 were little holiday steamers, heeled over slightly. One of the 4 or 5 motorboats had rubbed along the wall as the tide ebbed, and was held in the angle of the near bridge. Warehouses and other buildings beyond the river were forbidding masses that added to the gloom of the water and hid all but a few mud gleams here and there. Penderby was sorry for having come. The scene was the most mournful the dead city had shown him. That he would not go back to the hotel yet. Approach of night seemed to have sharpened his senses, and the early afternoon restlessness had returned. A body lay 60 or 70 yards away, in the direction of Trafalgar Square. It was the only one in sight. The spread-eagled symmetry of it stirred his curiosity, and he walked quickly toward it. But something held him back, and his pace became slow. Then very slow. And then he was trembling. He stooped over the body. Recognition came without a shock. He was looking at Edward Penderby, lanky, ill-shaven, in ragged clothes. But the eyes, wide open, were quiet, and the lines beside the mouth had softened. The man who had lived dropped on one knee and touched the angular forehead with an objective pity.
"So you went too,"
he said.
There were still some traces of what had been London when life came back to the earth. green, creeper-tied heaps of concrete and steel, for instance, and flooded steel vaults beneath banks, and a few big guns and arsenals and presses now in rust under Fleet Street ruins. Rain, wind, heat, and cold had seen to the rest, and the two bodies, one well-dressed, the other shabbily, on a street beside the Thames, had been dust many a year.
That's the end. So, what do you think?
So, I was with them until the epilogue, because honestly, it makes sense that he was dead all along, but I don't understand how there were two bodies there. Like, if they had been dust many a year, so did the whole world get cloned? And
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think about that.
like it was the old body and the new body. And
yeah, but there's no evidence of cloning earlier. Like, there's no like it would have been
how
one
are there
thing.
two of him? Like, that's what I don't get.
I would say I did not expect the ending when I first read it.
I spent the whole thing trying to. My theory while I was reading it the first time was like that he was just seeing people as dead, and they actually were alive, and it was going to be some sort of like metaphor.
Interesting.
Like he was the only one alive because like he's just apart from society or something. I don't know. But then him being dead all along was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I read the epilogue. I'm like, wait, there are two bodies there?
Yeah, I wish the epilogue wasn't there because I love how it ends when he's saying, so you went too.
And I guess he felt like he had to say like when life came back to Earth. So like really everyone died on the entire planet.
Yeah.
And then started over.
Yeah, no, I liked it. And it's very mid-century Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah,
like,
very Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah. So it's perfect for this magazine. Yeah. I will say at first, when I first started reading it, I was like, is this the inspiration for 28 Days Later? Are we going to see zombies? So we hope you guys liked our story today, or not our story, but our rendition of this story. For our October spooky episodes, however, instead of including an etiquette segment at the end of each episode, we like to recommend a bit of spooky media to get you into the holiday spirit. So, Jackie, what recommendation do you have for us today?
So my recommendation is twofold. So I was listening to, as I do, a Halloween playlist on Spotify, and a version of the Headless Horseman song from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, the Disney movie from 1949, done by K-Star, came on, and I had no idea she did a version of that. So I have really 3 recommendations that are all kind of the same recommendation. So 1, if it's been a while since you've watched The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, get you to Disney Plus and watch that because it holds up and it's great. And it's narrated and the song is sung by Bing Crosby. And it's great. And then go listen to the K-Star version, which is also great, and I love her. And what's really interesting about all this, which is a great transition out of spooky season and into Christmas, I guess, is that I know her best for her version of The Man with the Bag, which is a really, like a cool swinging Christmas song. And Bing Crosby, as you know, did a lot of Christmas songs too, but if you want to hear them do something spooky, I highly recommend this whole situation. So go watch The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad for the Headless Horseman stuff, and then you get to enjoy the Bing Crosby version, and then go to Spotify and listen to the K-Star version of that song. And that is my spooky recommendation.
Nice.
To cheer you up after this kind of bummer of a short story. If you want happy spooky. Because all of my recommendations are spooky, not scary, because that's how I Halloween.
Well, and also because it is the end of October, so now we have to switch into Christmas.
Yes.
We're going to bypass Thanksgiving.
Do all Christmas topics for the next month.
No. But, well, it looks like we have finally landed the plane on not just our episode today, but on the Halloween season. Thank you all for listening today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend.
You can also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at MCL Podcast. Instagram is the best place to send us feedback and episode suggestions. Send us a DM anytime. And you can also contact us through the Send Us a Text Message feature in our show notes.
Yeah, so send us some fan mail. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Happy Halloween!
Woo!
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.